Jay, are you ready?
Just getting a few things handled.
Mr. Jason Priestley.
One for me, one for you.
How good do they look?
You're too kind.
Do you get this, guys? Do you get that anybody who loved that show, just the thought of seeing the two of you together just sort of feels like home for people?
Wow, that's good to know. I kind of like that. I know that anytime any two of us get together, it's the combined specific gravity of that. It's not just you yourself, which is its own thing. But whenever any two of us get together, it's kind of an event in some way. But we do it all the time. I mean, we hang out all the time. Not just me and Jay, but other members of the cast. We all still pretty much see each other.
Do you find that you get that a lot? Do you find that people want to know whether you guys are still friends? That matters?
Yes, that seems to be a question that is pretty pervasive. It seems to be question number 2, right after was Shannon really a bitch?
Yeah, they usually do come in that order.
And the answer to question number 1 is yes, and the question answer number 2 is yes.
And it doesn't matter in which order they ask.
Would either of you like to say anything nice about Shannon Doherty?
Because we're all friends here, right? We can get down to brass tacks.
A lot of nice things to say about Shannon. Of course. I worked with her for years. We did a lot of great work together. I mean, clearly, some of you guys like those scenes, right? She's a fine actress.
Yeah.
And, we just, on the day, we had some problems. But those are well documented. We don't need to get into them here. I have no hard feelings. Got nothing but love for that young lady.
I actually concur with everything that Luke just said. I mean, Shannon, I worked very closely with Shannon for a very long time. Shannon and I had a lot of very good times together and did a lot of great work together. I actually worked with her very closely as a director too for a very long time. I got a lot of love for Shannon. Shannon was going through a lot of very difficult things in her life, and unfortunately, a lot of the difficulties she was having in her life, she was bringing a lot of those problems in her personal life to our place of work. And I'm sure, as all of you know, you guys are all professional people who have careers and jobs. And
sure you are.
It's Friday afternoon. You're here with us. Yeah, sick day, right, guys? Yeah. As you guys all know, you can't let your personal life bleed into your professional job, and unfortunately, Shannon was letting that happen a little too often. Shannon was just having a hard time, and that's unfortunately we had to part ways with her, which was too bad. But that's all it was.
There was no Twitter at the time, but it didn't matter what town or city you were in. It just seemed like everybody just wanted Brenda off the show. And were you guys aware of that even without having the connection that you would have today working on a show with fans?
No. The thing about my answer is no. I mean, he'll hit you with his in a second. The nature of the filming that we did was so intensive in terms of we filmed, most shows would do 22 episodes in a year. A lot of the years we were doing 32 episodes. We had an extra third of a season to do, so our workload was so intense and there wasn't any social media. We spent 12 hours or more every day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week in this building in Van Nuys. And I didn't read a newspaper for days on end. I didn't, there was nothing in my life like that program for a while. So it was hard to catch on any of that stuff.
I of course, was hip to what was going on. I had friends in the outside world that were very connected to the outside world that would deliver me copies of the I Hate Brendan newsletter. That was a very comical piece of
that breaks my heart.
It was kind of mean, but it was also kind of funny. That was sort of the social media of the day. Somebody actually took time out of their lives to cobble together this sort of homemade newspaper. I mean, that was kind of where I think people were the internet was very young back then, and people were starting to.
And the internet was invented to keep up with 90210, by the way. That's why it was a little late in happening, but that's why.
Al Gore invented the internet because he was a big 90210 fan.
That's right.
That's right.
Really wanted to know more about what was going on.
And I don't blame him, because we were pretty.
You.
Luke, in '91, you did an interview where you said that you and Jason made a pact to never let fame go to your head. At any point from '91 until the end of the show, did fame get to your head?
Hell no. No, I gotta tell you, I don't like being famous. I don't fight. I'm not an asshole about it. I know it's the nature of what my life is now, but I prefer to just be in the crowd, moving along, but that's not really the way anymore. But the thing that happened with us, and a little bit I can speak for Jason here, it happened fast, it happened real quick, and it happened big. Yeah. We got real famous real fast, and that's why we had to talk about it. Because it was freaking out everybody else around us. The people that worked for us, and the people that worked for the network, and they had never been involved in anything like it. We had never been involved in anything like it. And we were able to look and see how it was changing a lot of people. They were starting to behave differently, the way that they would relate with other people, their relationships would become different. And we just looked at each other and said, let's just not buy into this shit, man. Let's just keep coming to work, and they'll all scream, and then we'll go to work. Let's just keep going to work and not worry about any of this. And we pretty much stuck to that. We've never been competitive about who gets to do what, or anything like that. There were people in our respective camps that had concerns about who would get a magazine cover, who would get to Saturday Night Live first, or anything like that. We just never gave a shit about any of that.
And that was the pact that we were talking about. It was just about that we would the thing that would always come first with us was the work. And if we took care of the work, then the work would take care of itself.
It's like your teeth. You take care of them, and they'll take care
I'm
of
trying to get one set. And any kids out there in the audience, I want to remind you, you only get one set of teeth.
And if you take care of them, they'll take care of you.
That's right.
So we got lives on that show. We learned things but the fame, and just when you're going through it and you're experiencing it, and it doesn't go away after a year, it doesn't go away after 2 years, it doesn't go away after 5 years, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. You can't let it drive you. Yeah. Because you never have control over why you're famous, for how long you're famous, none of that. So I don't worry about it.
The show dealt with, at the time, even at the time, talking about AIDS or safe sex or date rape, alcoholism. I think you smoked heroin on the show.
I did.
You did smoke heroin on the show. When this stuff was coming up, how much of those sort of issues came from you guys, came from the cast, gauging just from the fans that you would meet what was important to the people that watched the show?
Our original showrunner on the show, a guy named Chuck Rosen, he was very committed to the idea of doing socially responsible television and talking about these issues of kids having unprotected sex in the age of HIV, the drugs, all that stuff. And what sort of happened was, we'll do this episode about these two kids, and they're gonna have sex, and then once we pop that bubble, as it were, that's all people really wanted to see these guys doing, and who was doing it with whom, and Chuck was bummed about that. He sort of wanted to keep going down the road of the socially responsible, issue-driven episodes, but what the powers that be and everybody sort of came to realize was, no, they like these kids, wearing nice clothes and getting together. So a lot of the episodes became about that. And that was okay by me, and it was okay by us. We all, liked them and watched them. And what I find, though, even to this day, like today, I met some folks who came, and a mother who had her daughter, and obviously the daughter, you know, she caught up in reruns or on DVD, however. But I always, every time I do something like this, I invariably come across somebody that says, and you know, me and my mom, we talked about that because it was on the show. And we'd never talked about it before, and I don't know if we had ever talked about it. And there were all kinds of different issues, you know, from, you know, the obvious stuff of like sexuality and drugs to, you know, bullying, and just not having much self-confidence and all that kind of stuff. And in those situations, TV has then done a good thing. And it's not often that it does. So I thought that was kind of cool.
You fought like hell at the beginning of this when people would refer to you as a role model.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be a role model.
Yeah.
It wasn't in your contracts. Would tear anybody apart if you said that you were a role model. Now that you have your own kids and you see television today,
Yeah.
does your view as far as what role model you may have been change?
Does my view of it change?
Do you think maybe you should have grabbed onto that a little bit more?
No.
No.
No, I don't. Because I'm a guy on TV pretending to be somebody else. If you're a parent to a child, you have to be the role model to that child. And you have to spend, it has to be important to you, and you got to spend your time in your life doing it. I can only do that for the 2 children that I have. I can barely do that for the 2 children that I have. But looking back on it, and I always try, you know, and I tell my kids this, you know, you know, they're actors, they're people, they're this. It's the characters that we all fall in love with. And we're the same too. You guys fall in love with the characters, we fall in love with the characters too. We're just guys going to work, and we're lucky we get to play these characters. But I always tell that to my children, you know, the things that you see these people do on TV, they were sort of designed to do that. They were written by committee. You know, without pulling the cover off of what entertainment is, I still want them to enjoy it, but I say to them, you know, that's not your role model, this is. Now I am a role model. But back then, I was 23 years old, I had no kids.
Who was the best kisser?
Between us? Yeah, obviously it's a misunderstood question.
No, it's true. I'll admit it.
Can we test that out?
Well, you know, I kissed a lot of girls on that show.
Did you kiss a lot of girls because of that show too?
Long time ago. Well, I'd like to think I might have got them kissed anyway, but
We could have a contest right now.
I'm sure probably a couple hundred.
Did anybody ever date you hoping to date your character? Did you meet girls that just wanted you to be the guys on TV?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were horribly disappointed. Yeah, girls would date me thinking they were going to date the virtuous Brandon Walsh. They were horribly disappointed. You know, they would sit down and go out for dinner with me, and I'd order a Manhattan, and they would look at me like, well, what, huh? You don't want to start with the ginger ale? No, sorry, sweetie. This isn't going to end well for you.
Yeah, I would date girls, you know, and they'd be expecting that bad boy, and I'd say, you got him. That's how it goes.
Who was your favorite secondary female character? Because there was Emily Valentine, Claire, and Valerie that all sort of came in.
Claire.
Valerie.
Oh, I know who those are.
Or
That took me a minute, man.
I
I can think, I see all these pictures in my head. I know who that
Right.
one. One's Kathleen, and then that other one. Yeah, right.
Valerie was Tiffany Thiessen.
Yeah.
Claire.
We have to do this?
Claire was Kathleen Robinson, Canadian girl, beautiful skin, right? Kathleen Robinson.
Let's hear it for the beautiful Canadian girls. I'll stand up. Yeah. Love it, eh? Beauty, eh?
Emily Valentine, of course, Christine Louise.
I think Jason's sort of backed into a corner here with that choice, so I'm going to step in and say that, you know, Tiff brought a real shot in the arm to the show when she came in, and I think it was because she was wearing only a bra and underwear. First time we saw her, right? Yeah.
And wore them well.
Yeah. She wore them, and she wore them well.
Yeah.
And that did not hurt the show. Adam.
I'm gonna say that each one of those girls brought something very different to the show, and brought something very different to the show at a time when the show needed it. I think when Christine came to the show needed that kind of, you know, that kind of like alternative, girl energy to the show. I think the show kind of needed that kind of shot in the arm. And then when Tiffany came to the show needed that kind of shot. Shannon just left the show. We needed that.
And this was the genius of Aaron Spelling. The brother would look at a show and go, you know what we need? This is what we need.
Right.
And then he would go get it.
Yeah.
And I'm damn glad he was like that, because brother looked at the pilot and said, you know what we need? We need some guy to be kind of a bad guy. Go get that one kid. I would have never had a job otherwise.
Yeah.
Aaron was really good about, he never lost his objectivity on the shows, which I thought was really cool, because I would sit and watch other shows that he produced with him. Like I'd sit there like Seventh Heaven, First Star, and stuff like that. And I'd sit there and be in Aaron's office, be watching an episode with him, and he'd be making his notes and stuff like that, or he'd just be dictating them, and he always kept his objectivity. He could sit and watch a show and go, that didn't work, and this is why, and he would, and he had the power, creatively and otherwise, to make all the changes he wanted to. So, I got to give credit where it's due. Bless you.
What was your relationship with Aaron, Jason?
My relationship with Aaron was I had a wonderful, very sort of avuncular relationship with Aaron.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either.
Stop, Jesus. Well, I mean, he was educated in America, so I can understand that. But you,
I'm offended.
yeah, beat you in the War of 1812, and I'll beat you again. Avuncular, uncle-like.
Okay.
Yes.
Or uncle-like.
Yes.
Okay.
Avuncular. Right? Anyone?
We're just saying.
Anyone? Right?
Any avuncular people out there? Nieces, nephews?
I had a very avuncular relationship with him. He was a great friend. He was also a great teacher to me. He taught me invaluable relationship about speaking, which obviously I forgot most of those lessons that he taught me.
Avuncularly so.
Yes. No, he taught me a lot about television and the way television works and how to tell stories. But he also taught me a lot about how to polish off a bottle of vodka, which he was very good at. Oh my God.
He was diligent.
He would not quit. He would not quit until that bottle was empty. No, Aaron was a great storyteller. He was very pragmatic about telling stories, and he had very simple rules about how to tell a story, and he wanted everything to be very aspirational and very beautiful, and he was also wanted to keep everything very simple, and those rules of storytelling are the hallmarks of storytelling that all of the producers that are still working, a lot of the producers that are working today follow his rules of storytelling that he's been following since from the moment he started in the 60s till the moment he died.
As an actor and a writer.
All these guys are continuing on to this day.
And they just do that because they want to have all that money like he had.
That's right.
And that's the truth of it. You get producers to copy Aaron, that's why. That's and I got to tell you, he did not set out to become the uber-rich television producer, world record holder that he was. It just sort of all happened bit by bit by bit. And he thought about these other shows, and then he got in business with these other writers, and then he had 6 shows on the air, and then he had 7 shows on the air, and then, ABC belonged to him in the 70s. But it wasn't his intention. He just loved, like Jason said, he loved to tell stories. He would sit in his office and tell us stories. He'd come to the set, sit in our dressing room, tell us stories. He just was always doing it.
But he also had he had a strange relationship. He was loved. He was adored by fans, and people loved to watch his product. But he was also hated by the critics. Television critics hated him. They panned all of his shows. He was the worst reviewed television shows through the 70s and the 80s. All of his shows were reviewed horribly, and our show was no different. When our show was first reviewed by the New York Times and the New York Post, we got scathing reviews. Not only the show, but us actors in particular were singled out as.
They like my side.
Oh my God, they let us know.
Everybody did.
Literally, they were like, again, all those kids on that show, yeah, you guys all just signed your death warrants, and you guys should all go back to theater school and don't even bother anymore. You could just go back to working at Tim
Yeah, I
Hortons.
remember there
Have
was
a nice time.
that one chick that used to write for the Post in New York, Cindy Adams or whatever.
Yeah.
She decided she was going to bust into a new medium and have a half-hour television gossip show. She did the pilot on my ass. She thought, I'm just going to jump out there and tell the world Luke's done these dirty movies and Luke's a bad actor. And she had some casting director asshole come on and say, yeah, he needs a lot of work, and this and that. And I thought, this is the business I'm in? Jesus, I'm just going to work, man. I'm doing the best I can. If you don't like it, cool. You got to do your little show about it, cool. That show never went on the air, just that pilot. And, we went on to make many, many episodes. Again, because we just concentrate on doing the work. And when the world's got we're not just throwing rocks, but they're hitting you with a slingshot. You can either sit there and go, ow, ow, and really let it get to you and have it bother you, or you can just put the dome down and say, I'm going to work. Throw them rocks, keep them coming. I don't give a shit. When I start giving a shit, I'll stop going to work.
Are you guys happy that you found